I look at you and I look at Pace and the way you guys present yourselves, and obviously you guys have great reputations, and I watch your content, and you are that guy, you are that giver. How do you balance that also with savage mode, where you also want to destroy your competition to some degree, or at least just you want to jostle your way up to the top, but also you want to help everybody around you? And do you ever find yourself?
I don't really think about the competition much. I just think like, okay, based on what I'm trying to achieve, I just need to surround myself with great people that can help along this journey. And like, I could set this mission and vision for what we want to do as a company, and then give the core values so everyone's in alignment of how we behave on the way towards that mission, and then just go to work every day on doing that. I think that's just what I've always done, and I'm just going to do the thing consistently for years. And
all right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals, and everything we talk about leads to deals. I'm super stoked to have somebody I've had my eye on in the REI industry, and also kind of the various verticals for the past couple of years. I consider him to be one of those young OGs. He's got that young baby face, but he's actually been in the industry that I'm in for longer than I have. And so I looked up to him. I watched him. He's the co-founder of Manifest You with the great Pace Morby. He's co-founder of Start Virtual, which is an awesome VA staffing company. He's got this amazing community called Scale with Pros as well. So it's somebody that I love watching, devouring the content. And I wanted to just give you a firm and a warm welcome, Cody. Thank you for coming on the Leads to Deal podcast, brother.
hey, thanks for having me, Scott. Happy to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. I mean it when I say young OG. So I saw in your bio today that you're 30, and you look younger than 30, and not that 30 is old, but you look younger than 30. And
I keep this so I can keep my age. When I was like 18, I was like I looked like I was 14. I didn't start getting facial hair until I was like 26. So,
well, mine's just started turning white not too long ago. I said, oh shit, I gotta and I let it grow out a little bit today. But yeah, man, you got 30 years on the actual books, but I've been watching your journey and really researching you in advance of having you on here, because I'm like, dude, I want to know more about this kid. And I think people who follow you, and if you don't know who Cody Barton is, I think it's one of these things that you've surrounded yourself really well with greatness. And you've been able to kind of stand out on your own and kind of have your own brand and have this really close nucleus of really highly talented people. And one of those is Pace Morby and your partnership with him in Manifest You. So I know how you got in touch with them, but can you give our listeners like that just initial snapshot? We won't spend too much time on it, but how does a stranger end up being a co-partner with somebody like Pace Morby?
yeah. So initially, I was a real estate agent initially. When I got into real estate, I was like, I want to, do this fix and flip stuff. And I got my license because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't really, have anyone that I knew that was doing what I wanted to do. And so got my license, did that for a couple of years. And when I was 21, and sold real estate as an agent, hated doing that. I'm like, I don't want to work with clients. I'm like, this sucks. Like I got into
real quick, were you driving them in your car? Like, what was the sucky part? Because I never would be a real estate agent traditionally, but what was the part that just like grinded you the most?
Honestly, for me, the most part was just that I had to physically be somewhere. That was like, it sounds weird, but like, I like to just be wherever I want to be. Like, I'm like, one of my things that I know, it's like on the one of my success statements that I have for myself is like, my work is location independent. Like I can work wherever I want to work from wherever I want to work. And like having to do anything that's like ties me down to being in one singular location really bothers me. So I had to show clients homes, or I had to like go to a listing appointment. And yeah, people can argue like, oh, like you could build a team and then they could do the listing appointments and they could do that. And I'm like, I just didn't want to, I wanted to just be independent from the start on whatever I was doing and not have to physically be there. So that kind of leads down this path of, I had this like drop dead date and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so basically I, ended up just stopping that business. I'm like, I'm no longer going to do agent work. I'm going to refer it out, and I'm going all in on wholesaling and I want to fix and flip. And so, I originally was, door knocking to kind of start off and driving for dollars to get deals, and got one of my first flips that I ended up joint venturing with a local guy here in Arizona named Frank Kelly. And it was really cool just seeing that process be able to work out. But so I started, I was door knocking, then I was doing driving for dollars, and then once I made some money from that, because I wanted to be really lean, I didn't want to just start spending money and not know what I was doing. And so once I figured out what I was doing, then I started hiring virtual assistants. And so then I had a couple of VAs. I was generating leads, and, I was closing probably like 2 deals a month. So I wasn't like rock star, like freaking, crushing it, but like I was doing pretty decent, but I knew I could be doing better. And I'd watched a Real Estate Disruptors podcast, and Pace was on it. So I had these dual monitors at my condo that I was living at the time. And like on this monitor, it's like I'm working my CRM. And then on this one, I'd always have like a podcast on, just keeping me like excited all the time, just like hearing people's stories. And, I always had that kind of going. And so I heard this one in Paces on there with Steve, and he was just talking about being a great closer. And, and then he was like, yeah, and he's in Arizona and in the East Valley. And I'm like, I'm in Arizona and I'm in the East Valley. And then he like gave out his phone number on this podcast. And he's like, if you have deals in Arizona, like send me your deals. And so I texted and I was like, hey, I have a lot of leads that I'm getting, and I'm not the best closer. And here, from hearing you on the podcast, you're a great closer. Can I just give you my leads and you close them? And you could keep the money, but I just would like to watch you do the sales process so I can see how you're doing it, so I can get better. And so he responded, and, we ended up meeting up, and then, we joint venture, like literally we got like 5 deals in the first like 30 days. And I was like, holy crap, this is great. And he was like, holy crap, this is great. Cause I didn't have to go to the lead and deal with all the freaking CRM crap. He's like, I just go on an appointment and get a contract.
Yeah, that's dope. The way I look at it is the way I also heard you say it too, is like you led with value.
Yeah.
Like, cause he gave out his number on that podcast, which is a psychopathic thing to do, a guy like him. And I don't know how many people, I don't know if he's changed his number since then, but just imagine all the people
the same number.
So everybody go back, catch that Disruptors podcast with Steve Train, go back and find it. And, but to think about that he got this call, and he probably got a lot of texts from a lot of people, but you were like opening it up with value. And what I thought was so kind of prophetic about that is I had a young man come into my office today, and he's one of the managers here of a certain department, and he was asking for a raise, and I think that it was warranted. I think there was some value to his ask, but he didn't lead with value. And it wasn't even a matter of, I was just helping him say, hey, next time, let's articulate some of your biggest wins. And if you got a win that you're about to pull out of your rabbit hat next to, hey, listen, I was able to get this client to upgrade to this, just bring something before the ask. And this conversation would have gone so much smoother. And that's what you did. You brought something before the ask, because if you would have just been randomly, hey, local big shot investor in town, can I just be around you for free?
Yeah.
People are going to say no. But one of the best ways to growth hack your guys' industry, I think, really is that. It's like contact that biggest guy in your market who's doing big deals, who's doing whatever it may be. Say, hey, man, dude, I'll work the piss out of the leads for you. I'd love to have an opportunity to sit in your office and grind out with you. Whatever you want to compensate me, I'm game for. I just want to be close to greatness. And it's a great way to hack your way into this space.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's just, I don't know, I was always raised to do that. And, it's like my dad would always tell me, it's just like, don't be, never be a taker. And this, you don't want to be a taker, you always want to be a giver. And so I always have just tried to think, I'm like, okay, like I always want to try to give value as best as I can. And so that's, obviously serves well in conversations like that. But a lot of people kind of, I don't think, they get it the wrong way, and they like reach out and they're like, can I pick your brain, or like, can I take you to lunch, or can I buy you coffee? It's like, no one that you're reaching out to that's successful is struggling to buy their own lunch or coffee. And they don't, they probably have things to do Tuesday at 9 a.m. for 2 hours in the morning. They probably have a full schedule. And so it's like, I think it's like you're saying, it's like finding ways to lead with value to, differentiate yourself, because a lot of people reach out to people, I'm sure like yourself and other successful people, and they're leading with this ask, but it's like, there's lots of people that are asking, but it's like, what are you giving to, stand out?
Well, it's a good tip and it's a good strategy. I look at you and I look at Pace and the way you guys present yourselves, and obviously you guys have great reputations, and I watch your content, and you are that guy, you are that giver. I wanted to ask though, how do you balance that also with savage mode, where you also want to destroy your competition to some degree, you know, or at least just you want to jostle your way up to the top, but also you want to help everybody around you. And do you ever find yourself, did you struggle with that in the beginning where you were more beast mode and then you're like, okay, no, I can actually win more this way? And how have you handled that?
Yeah, I think I've never been one that I don't really think too much about like competition as much. I've always I don't know. I've always just kind of been living in my own lane, and I'm like, I have what my goals are for the businesses that I'm building, and however I can, continue moving down this path towards achieving those goals. And I'm big on like I love building teams, and so like I don't really think about the competition much. I just think like, okay, based on what I'm trying to achieve, I just need to surround myself with great people that can help along this journey. And like I could set this mission and vision for what we want to do as a company and then give the core values so everyone's in alignment of how we behave on the way towards that mission, and then just go to work every day on doing that. And I think that's just what I've always done. And I think for me, it's like that savage mode, I guess you could say, is just like I'm just like a brute force consistent person. Like I'm like
Yes.
the guy that's like, I may be out if I'm out in the field and digging a ditch, maybe I'm the last one, out there, but I'll probably dig the most ditches because I just keep going consistently. Like I'm not gonna like go hard for a day and then not do anything for a few days. Like I'm just gonna like chop wood, haul water, chop wood, haul. I'm just gonna do the thing consistently for years. And I think that's the difference for me is I've never been the best salesperson. I've never been the best at any one particular thing, but what I've typically been the best at is I will do it longer than most people are willing to stomach doing a thing to get the result that I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's a Will Smith. He's got a video, but he talks about like if me and you are on the treadmill and
Right.
we're racing, one thing I tell you is that
Yeah.
you will get off that treadmill because he will die.
Die on the
And
treadmill.
that's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's that persistence. But I think that's also a level of maturity that you had as a young entrepreneur too, because it takes some people a long time to realize that their greatest competitor, their greatest enemy is actually that weaker version of themselves. And so,
Yeah.
like you said, you're not really worried about competing with other people. You're competing against yourself every day. Are you holding yourself up to your standards and to your goals? And so I think that's, for me, I think that's nice to be able to see in somebody your guys' age. And it reminds me too of a Zig Ziglar thing too. Like, I don't, you know who Zig Ziglar is? The
Dude,
old school guy?
I went to Zig Ziglar work. When I was 16, I got this 40 CD audio set of Zig Ziglar that I listened to when I was 16 years old. I went to a Zig Ziglar run by Tom Ziglar since he had passed workshop when I was 20. And it's, I'm a big Zig Ziglar fan for sure.
No man other than my father has influenced me more than Zig Ziglar. There's no other content that I've consumed religiously for decades. And I met it right around the same ages of you. Mine was in my very early 20s. And it really helped a lot. And I loved that it was all Christian backed.
Yeah.
I felt like it was Christian backed.
Yeah.
And but one of the biggest quotes that really helped guide my life is you can get everything that you want out of life if you help enough people get what they want out of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, deal. I knew it just like if somebody said anything else prophetic, I knew it was true. I didn't need to verify it. And I said, okay, that this is a fact, then I just have to help. I want a lot of things. So now I must help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use that daily in my sales because if you believe in your product and whatever it is you're selling, then damn it, you're helping those people. And so I just wanted to make sure I stacked up my wins over here to be able to get my wins over here. And so he changed my life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, same. That's where I remember they was the CDs, my parents went through, they went to a conference of his and they bought this big CD set, like this big, thick, ugly CD set. And, you like flip it open and there's like pages of CDs to go through. And I just remember I had this little like crappy stereo that I'd have at my parents' house, and the basement was finished out, and that's where my room was at the house. And as a 16-year-old, and I'd just be like popping those in. I'd like play Call of Duty, but I'd be like listening to like, how to win, and it's like how to set goals. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm like, I've never heard anything like this. That was like one of my first initial introductions to personal development, actually.
I don't know if I'd be where I was at without Zig Ziglar existing on this earth. That's for sure for me. I think that it was such an impact and it was the right devouring point in my life. But then I think, and there was a lot of other guys, Tony Robbins, and there was all the sales guys. You know, I'm like one more generation behind you guys. But I almost feel bad for the kids today because I didn't have the opportunity when I was listening to Zig to really be able to scroll to the next speaker or to only get served in these sound bites. And I really struggle. If all my self-help came from this little machine here in my hand, that's also a poison pill. And so it's really tough to navigate it for the kids. I really feel tough for the kids today because their channel of communication also has thorns all over it. And you have to be hyper disciplined to actually stay on the quality content that's coming into your ears.
Super true. Yeah. And that's thinking about it. It's like that, it's weird because like I'm like in the generation where it's like Instagram became a thing when I was like almost done with high school. Like I was like, and it wasn't really that popular. You couldn't even post stories on it yet. Like you were just like, you'd post. And, so it's like a lot of these things in technology that now the kids are struggling with. Like I was just on the cusp of like things coming out. Like Facebook was like, my mom let me get a Facebook when I was like 14, finally. My friends were on it, but it was just like, what is this Facebook thing? And, so it is weird. It's like the access gives so much more access so you can learn and be successful. Like you can get all this stuff on YouTube. Obviously YouTube was around when I was, when I was in high school, but it's like, there's so much more access, but then it also makes it harder at times because it's like, what information do you know is true and like what's good information and what's bad? And there's no like rule of who's posting what's right or wrong. It's just people could post whatever the heck they want and you have to decipher through a lot of it.
Well, I think about like the YouTube algorithm, and I'm not sure how many years YouTube's been around, but it's not just the design. It's the way that it's learned me so well and the way that it's learned how to create these pathways that you stay in the app. And so it's not just like a house full of a bunch of different rooms and there's this content. No, it's guiding you where it wants you to go every single time you're on the app. So it's really interesting for today's kids. I think that the people who have the best attention spans right now for the youth are really that's like a strategic advantage as they go on their entrepreneurial journey. And I know you also work with a lot of these younger entrepreneurs, or at least in some of these communities that you guys are focusing in on. And so you're in Arizona right now, correct? Is that where you physically are sitting? Okay, cool. Answer this for me. Why is Arizona the mecca for wholesalers and all you real estate gurus?
Dude, I don't know. I grew up here, so that's my excuse. I just lived here. No, I don't know. I don't know why these other people come here, but I guess I guess one of the answers to that is I visited most of the states in the U.S. and I'm like, oh, like would I live somewhere else? And then every time I come back, I'm like, I'd just rather live in Arizona. I like it. I like it here. I don't know what it is. I mean, I like there's a lot of goodness here and. I think there's a good entrepreneurial hub here of people, and I think people enjoy that networking aspect that's here. And the weather here is great from, October or really September to May. So like you got a good chunk of the year where the weather is like perfect. And then you have, very terrible heat from, end of May to beginning of September. So, I don't know why they all come here, but, I just don't want to leave because I love being here. I mean, I think about getting a second home somewhere for the summer, but,
Well, I think that's a really, you're such a nice guy, like, cause that's such a nice guy answer. Because you're right. It is a lot of the geographics, but there's a lot of people that are attracted because they look at it as like a pirate and they're like, hey, listen, there's this center of revenue happening in this particular industry here. Mm-hmm. And if I want to coach, I now need to my proximity to some of these powerful players will help myself get elevated. And so I see this a lot in multiple industries, but for sure in the REI space, is that there are like the OGs and it just so happens to be everybody collected or came together and that's that foundation. Mm-hmm. But then you'll have these people who try to become like magnets and they're like, oh, well, I'm here. And so I'll just try to bump into them as much as possible. And some of it's for good and it's the right thing to do and blessings, but then some of it's not. And so I know that from your perspective with pacing yourself, you guys really carry yourself, I think, head and shoulders from a quality of human being, quality of being there to support, to build up people at a high level. How do you kind of navigate and stay away from the guys or gals that you're like, bro, this guy's fake as shit.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I don't live in Scottsdale. Yeah, not, no,
Tag
no.
press, put that online right now. All Scottsdale REI guys, tag them.
No, but I don't know. There's something about Scottsdale that attracts a lot of like slimy, schemy, scammy people. It's like Scottsdale and Miami. Like those are like, one and the same. It's like all the, you have fake everything there. It's like, guys that, are in debt up to their eyeballs to have cars they can't afford. And, there's a million thousandaires there driving, the entry level C class and, but trying to make it look like they make $1 million a day. And, so I don't know, there's a lot of fakeness there, but so I don't want to fully hate on Scottsdale, but they just seem to all go there. But there's, I have good friends there that are legit people that live there. But, I don't know. For me, man, like I try to stay in my lane and I network as much as I can. I go to masterminds, I go to events, I get myself around different people and, there's just certain people that, you vibe with and, some that you don't. And, it's like my tribe is always going to be the people that, are real business people, real operators and not these, the fugazis that are, making up all this stuff. It's like, I had a good friend of mine. This is a old story from years ago, but good friend of mine that did really well in network marketing. And he was in his early 20s, was living in like the Hollywood Hills in a sick house and had like a Lamborghini and all this stuff. And we were joking about this a couple of years ago. And I just kind of chuckle and it brings me to this when we talk about this. But he's like, there's something about, that people just have to exaggerate so much that he's like, it just kills the actual achievement. He's like, people would, bring a friend to my house and, he's in network marketing. So to like, they'd do events there. He's like, they'd bring people to the house and be like, yeah, my friend Cliff, he has 2 Lamborghinis and he's this and that. And he's like, I only have 1 Lamborghini. And now it just doesn't even sound cool. It's like, oh, I only have 1. It's just like, but it's like, why is like so much exaggeration have to happen in all of these areas? And it's just I don't know, but that's what I think of. I think of Scottsdale in a lot of ways.
Well, it's you're so unique because you've said like kind of like opposite things. You're like, I stay in my own lane, but yet I network really heavily. And what that is, that's just a level of confidence about who you are and what your DNA is and your moral compass, and that you're sniff out the BSers factor, that you can go into these rooms, you attract the new people who it's the right time in your life to attract and kind of stay away from the other ones per se. And I, who also have this marketing company here, I get to see behind a lot of people's businesses. And my one real quick story is I went to an event. And I don't know if the guy didn't know I was in the room or not, but he's been like using my service for 3 months, at this stage. He had like his home cold callers had like devastated. It was terrible. And now he needed to recover. And he gets called on stage to give a presentation on how to train in-house cold callers. And he's up there talking about his whole in-house cold call team. And I'm like, bro, you just told me that they had the worst quarter ever. You just fired everybody and you just hired me. And you're up there training people on. And I said, oh, I get it. I see what's happening now. What is going on in this industry?
Yeah. So there's a lot of that. And, I guess I would, going back to there was a mastermind that I joined for about a year. This was probably like 4 years ago at this point, but I won't say the name of it because obviously I don't want to call people out. But, I went to a couple of the events and like everyone at this, these masterminds, there's like 80% of the people were just like ego heads. It was like, who has the biggest watch and like coolest car and, revenue numbers, gross revenue numbers. And it was just, there's a few people. So like there are good people in those rooms. There's these people that find themselves in those rooms. And so it's like, I find and seek out the good people and just kind of like, stick away from the bad ones. And then even there's people that present at these different events or masterminds or conferences or whatever. And I think it's also taking the advice for what it is and taking what works and then throwing away what doesn't. And so like in a way, like there's people that are out there that are teaching different things. And it's like, maybe their home life is a disaster. Maybe their health, like they're just severely overweight and they don't take care of themselves. But they know this one thing of how to do this marketing thing, or they know how to do this system thing, and they are good at it. And you can actually learn that thing. So it's like, I just kind of take the good from like what everyone has. Everyone has some good. And, as far as I try to see for,
Amen.
it's like, okay, well, I'll take that advice and like, I'm going to take that. That was a really good nugget on this operational thing, but I'm probably not going to like take much other advice, from someone that's like severely, overweight, out of shape, and like, has a terrible home life and like everything else in
Yeah.
their life is a disaster, but they got this one business thing. I could still learn that business thing from them. I'm just going to be cautious of the other advice that, they might be sharing.
Yeah, and I think about yours and the advice. What's really appealing, in particular with like Scale with Pros or any of your other content, is you really do have a experienced back, but I still feel like it's innate. Like hearing somebody of your age, and I say this with love from the bottom of my heart, but talk about systems and processes and like the administrative side of being an entrepreneur, the optimization side of dealing with staff and scaling. It's like super refreshing. And I don't think there's enough younger people out there in the REI space for sure, but in most kind of like mentorship type groups that have the capacity or knowledge to teach the back end of the business. Like you said, everybody's only focused on the front end, and then these people can never get off of this hamster wheel because they're stuck on this contract. It becomes a drug. They think that that's a business. They don't understand the back. And then all of a sudden, one day they look up and they're like, oh my God, we haven't hit our numbers. Now we're in financial. Now we're out. And so what led you on this like CEO administrative, like business coach thing?
So I would say like everything that, I teach and like our Scale with Pros group, it's really it's stuff that I wish I knew. And that, when I was starting off and just going through pain and suffering of banging my head against the wall. And, I've just really leaned into this area of business. And, there's a lot of people that, like you said, it's like a lot of people talk the, marketing sales side, and, there's this whole other side to the business. And, with that, like sometimes people are like, oh, well, so you don't know like anything about sales. I'm like, I actually know how to set up a sales team very well. I don't get energy from managing and actually working on the sales team from the psychological side of it on a day-to-day basis. So it's like, that's not my jam, but I know exactly what, how the CRM needs to be set up for them. I know what the KPIs need to look like. I know how we need to manage that team, so it's like, I'm leaning into the things that I enjoy the most in the business. And I think are the things that they're really required to continue to scale and to have, I talk about like building a self-managing company. I think that for me, my goal with any business that I'm building is I want it to be a self-managing company where I can leave 4 days or weeks or month at a time, and the business isn't going to fall apart. Because if it's not, it's like, well, is that really a business or just a job that you're doing? Which is fine. And, it's like everyone has a different goal. But for me, I want to be able to, again, like that thing at the beginning, it's like this freedom thing. I want to be location independent. Yes, I have an office. I'm in my office here in Mesa, but I don't have to be here. I can go leave and be gone for a month, and like I can work somewhere else remotely. And I'm choosing. I like the choice. For me, it's building a business that gives you choices versus these handcuffs of, you're making great money, but you have these handcuffs and you can't leave.
My buddy Nick Perry, and he's just my buddy I've met throughout the industry. He's got
I love following his stuff.
Yeah, he's got this damn thing that he's constantly doing. It's like, if you can't have pasta at 2:00 at your house, you don't have a company, you have a job or something. It's always it's like, you don't own a company, you have a job. And I'm like, but dude, I really like my office. I was like, dude, the only reason why I'm here at Tuesday. And so I agree with everything that you're saying there. I think that what I've was part of my goals, because like what you said about what gets you excited, what gets me excited is this sales pit. Some of the administrative stuff, no. And so like understanding these two different personality sets, because I tell people all the time, I say, hey, there's a guy right now returning a jet ski for the first time ever. He just lit from Alabama, went to Miami Beach first time. He just pulled that jet ski back up to the beach after 30 minutes for $200. And he's not as happy or as excited as I am when I come in here and everybody's hooting and hollering, screaming and yelling. And so that you got to find, like you said, what makes your heart like really jump, and then triple and double down on that.
And that's the key, is it's like the thing that, like whatever that thing is for you. I was talking to my fiance, and, she's looking at kind of moving into, she's for years, done like video editing, and she's a very creative person. And she was talking to me about, she's like, what do you think if I, kind of go down that path? And like, that's something that, I do more of, and I, maybe edit and take on clients. And I'm like, would that light you up every day and be excited about doing that every day? And she's like, yeah, like I'm really excited about it. I'm like, great. That's all that matters. Like, it's like, I don't, to me, it's like, build the business that serves and creates the life that you're wanting to live. And as long as we're doing that, it's like, great, you're winning. It's, I think people try to like impose what it should be. It's like you doing what you're doing in your office there and you're freaking stoked about it. That is winning. Like a successful person in my mind is the person doing what they want to do on their terms and the way that they do it. And, it's like, that's winning, So I think people, want to impose like, oh, well, you should be able to be remote all the time, or you should only be in your office, or you should only, it's like, there's no shoulds. It's like whatever winning is for you personally is what people have to get down.
Yeah. One of the things that I admire about you and your coaching and your teaching people is you really leverage, and I don't even think I think it's a byproduct of the right recommendations, but obviously you have Start Virtual, which is like an industry top level VA type service. And, but that's also one of the ways how people become better business owners and how they become more efficient. And you're like helping them find those A+ team players to be placed within their company. But I want to know, how did you get your how did you even know about the word VA? How was that first one, real quick?
My buddy Brandon, he's a wholesaler, fix and flipper in Florida, has been for 10 years now. Super, super successful dude. But I had actually reached out to him because he was already successful before I was even starting. I was like, hey, like, what are you doing to get deals? And he's like, oh, at that time, texting was like the wild, wild west. And like, you can like crush getting deals texting. Yes. And he was like telling me texting. And I was like, oh, dope. And then so I started doing that. And then I was like, how do you do more of this? I'm like, I want to send more texts. And he's like, oh, you just hire a VA. And I was like, okay, like, where do you find them? And he's like, oh, you just, you post online or whatever. And I was like, okay. So I just my first VA ever hired was from Bogota, Colombia, named Andres. Yeah. Yeah. So he was, he did texting for me. So that was the first VA that I ever hired. And it was just my buddy Brandon was like, just find someone online from some other country. And so I went on Craigslist and I like posted in different countries. And then I got a response from this guy Andres in Bogota, and that was my first VA.
Nice. Dude, I didn't even know the concept. I must have been like 20 something. I went to a Tony Robbins event and I bought the only thing I bought that was a firewalking event. But on one of those days, I bought this CD, and inside the CDs were just random DVDs, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys said something about a website. It was literally like in the middle of an interview, he said, yeah, so I just hire people on Elance and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's Elance? And I went to elance.com, and my 22-year-old mind was just absolutely shattered. Actually, probably older than that, but just shattered. I was like, wait a minute. So I can sit here, like, I want to work on these AdWords campaigns. Like, I had all these things. I was like, wait a minute, I can hire somebody with the expertise already for a fraction. And like, they're super stoked. And like, and I met industry impactful people from that, like people that I just worked with for so long that I ultimately ended up sharing them to other people. So it really, for me, it changed my paradigm so much so that I actually moved. Now I live in Latin America because I wanted to have more operational control over a big operation. And here I am.
It's so cool.
It's honestly, it's a culture thing for me though. So how do you do that? That was one of my questions. I said, wait a minute, he's got this Start team, right? And he's in Arizona. I know his people's in Arizona. Yeah. So how are you doing what I found so hard that I actually moved here to accomplish it? How are you maintaining company culture at scale?
I mean, in the Philippines, it's really it comes down to 100% our partner that's in the Philippines, Daryl. He is, before we were working together, he was working in upper management for another VA staffing company. So he already knew from like a structural level, like how, the team needed to be built out. And so he had that expertise, and, the culture building side, he's just really good at. And so that's been his, he's led that charge for us in the Philippines, is he's the guy.
How'd you find him?
He actually was referred from another VA that we hired. And then we ended up, it was funny because then he gets started and then he ends up, he's like, oh, my brother would also like to, do work here. And I was like, okay. And we hired him. And then he's like, I have another brother. It's like Dan, Daryl. And I was like, okay, we'll hire him too. And so like we ended up having this like house full of them, all just working. And, then eventually, I mean, people started asking us because we changed the way our real estate team was. Like we had at our old office, we had like 3 acquisition guys and then 1 dispo girl.
Yep.
And then there was no one else besides me. And it was like, we were turning, 8, 10 deals a month. So like a pretty good chunk of deals every month. And people,
of course,
people to come visit and they're like, how are you guys doing so many deals with like 5 people? Cause it's basically, us just all in this small office. And we're like, oh, well, we have like 20 in the Philippines that are also, doing, cold calling, doing lead management, texting, and doing all of that side of the business, just teeing up the deals for the ACT team. And so that initially is how we ended up starting the business, because people kept asking how we had such a small team, but we're putting up numbers. And then people started asking us if we could help them. And we're like, Daryl, can you help us like find some other people for our friends? And he's like, yeah. And then we were like, wonder if we should just start a company around this. And then that's essentially how all that happened. So
yeah, I love what you're saying in your journey to how you got to that point. I think is reflective of some of my advice. But when you get people who are coming to you for VA related services, whether it be administrative or outbound generation, it doesn't matter. But is there a part where you, in your head, you say, you're not actually ready, it's too soon for VAs? Or do you think, no, you should get out of the gates with VAs?
I think it really depends on where a person is. Like, because there's a lot of pieces that could matter on it, right? Like if someone comes in and they're like just starting their real estate business from, they've never been a business owner before, they're just starting, they're on a shoestring budget, not a good idea to get a VA. Don't do it.
Yep.
Go and do work as much as you possibly can to get, your first couple deals, get some cash in the bank, get some experience. And then let's, come back around and see if that's going to be a better fit. Because a lot of times, people don't realize, but when you do hire a VA in our structure anyways, like that's another human that you need to communicate with. And like, you need to, like, we help with management, but like you have to give them feedback on like what you're wanting to see. And you have to be able to coach them to, if you want to see something done differently and you don't tell them, like, they're not going to read your mind. And so like a lot of like newer entrepreneurs, I think can struggle with some of that. But, then you could have let's say give another business owner, right? Say they've had another business that's been successful. They've made hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've hired and built teams. And now they're just making a transition to real estate. Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, no, it probably, you're probably capable to bring on a couple VAs, and because you already know how to manage people from experience, you have some cash in the bank, you have some business acumen that, you're going to be set up for more success. So I think it depends on the person and their past experience and their financial situation for that starting point anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I only have like the outbound agent VA type of experience. And obviously our guys, we're here in our office. And so it's definitely more of an outbound call center type of environment. But I'll have people who come to me before they've really started doing volume, even if they have the capital. And I'm like, just for your own good, you need to go out there and get your teeth kicked in a little bit. Number one is it's so much better when somebody comes to me and they've had a bad experience somewhere else, because like they can really appreciate exactly how special what we've built is.
Yeah.
And like they get it and they hold on to us and they're sticky because they're like, oh my God, you solve all my problems, Scott. But the other side is accountability. I want to be held accountable. And if you haven't actually gone through the motions, you don't know how to hold your VAs, if you will, and no matter what the role is, accountable. If you can't hold them accountable, it's one of these detached relationships, no matter what. You're going to want to make sure that you have some type of parameters in place. And so that's why I always recommend people get out there, kind of get it done. Like say, get your deal volume up, get your processes, and then start. But you can't shortcut the shortcut. And, wholesaling's already the shortcut.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people too, they almost sometimes like they'll come to Start Virtual, or I just hear about this stuff, and it's like people think that they're just gonna there's gonna be some passive business. It's like, I'm just gonna hire some VAs, they're gonna get the leads, and like hopefully I can hire some other VAs to close the contracts, and like it's just like, dude, get out of here. Like people, it's like, I don't know, people are so obsessed with passive business and passive income, you know?
Yeah, they make it look easy. I saw somebody today, I don't even know who it was on social. They were like, "Hey, when I got into this, I was told that it was my buddy out of Connecticut." And he was saying something on social today. He was like, "Hey, I was told get into this. It was just going to be like an easy gig." Now he's wildly successful now, but he was just like, "Let me just tell you, this is not easy. Wholesaling is not easy. It is like a real deal commitment when you want to support your family and your friends, and you want to build a nice office and have these nice things. It's a real venture, and so it takes time to nurture people's relationships and hold them accountable and review those KPIs." Out of all of what you do for Start Virtual, what percentage is like outbound marketing, kind of similar to cold calling, whether it be outbound text, or is that a smaller portion or a bigger portion of the business?
It's very small. I would say probably 10 to 15% of our revenue is that. Very small.
Yeah.
We have more in the outbound side of just like customer service type outbound work than like lead gen work. So,
Nice.
like home service companies that'll hire Start Virtual and, doing outbound for like confirming appointments or, setting estimates up for, for their business, or, cleaning companies that, have, you have inbound inquiries online. They're sending out quotes and, getting people booked and doing scheduling for cleaners and things like that. So, not as much. We've overall like went away from that and focused a lot more on like admin type work, and then our bookkeeping side, like that. Those have been two of the bigger focuses there. It's admin and bookkeeping.
And also, I think it fits kind of you as well too. It's like, hey, there's such a need. No, with love, but there's such a need for that, and that's your specialty. Like, I never met anybody. The reason why I started my own is I didn't find anybody that I had used. I tried 2 different companies prior to starting my own. I didn't find anybody who had what I wanted to do accomplished already on the outbound side. Mm-hmm. And because I had lost my faith on that, I would have struggled to give a shot on this other side, this other thing, which is I could have used, particularly in the beginning, a lot of help with the bookkeeping, a lot of help with some of the administrative tasks, and helping me with the recruiting and the resumes and all the things that your company is able to do for these small business owners. But I know this is brain damage. And so even when you said that, I was just like, yeah, that was a smart move, bro, because like teaching 160 some agents to be phone savages day in, day out, outbound and dealing with this market, it's crazy. It's intense.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, I'm moving down this path in my life, where a couple of the companies that me and Pace have were, planning on selling over the next, 18, 24 months. And, I'm going more in on my Scale with Pros deal. And then, more of the recurring revenue businesses that are super sticky. So, I want to go down this path of, I want to buy a CPA firm and, be buying books of business of bookkeeping. And I don't think there's any business that's easy, at the end of the day. Like when you were talking about your buddy in Connecticut, I'm like, is there any business that's easy? And I'm like, I can't really think of any. There's just one, like at the end of the day, it just comes down to there's some that are just, more capital intensive, and then some that can be more profitable. And so, when I was sitting down at the beginning of this year and like looking at my goals, and I'm like, I just want to be like, I want to work out to my life to be where the businesses that I am in, can be at, 20, 30% net profit, in the margins, very, very low capital expenditures, from the stuff that I'm involved in. And that's just high profit, subscription needs versus want type revenue related activities. And, that's kind of the direction that I'm going more in. And, it's like those back office functions for companies, their needs, they have to be done. Yeah. Someone has to do them. They have to be taken care of. And so I'm like, well, they're boring and they're not sexy, but I'll take the sticky revenue, and, it's sexy to me because I could do things that I like with it.
But they're also low volatility, because when you have like a fractional CMO, or you have this bookkeeping firm that you're using and they execute well, you never want to get rid of them. That's just the thing that you want to keep in there and just rocking and rolling. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense for us to keep, like we have a different company that handles our Airbnbs. We have my own accounting team here, and really my own accounting team here could really do it all, but they do such a good job, and it's convenient and it's worth the money, and we pay them their fee. And we're just like, just roll with it, right? Because it helps us divest a little bit of leverage here from a time management. So I think you're on the right path there. And I love what you're doing too, because to me, I think you bring awareness to the young guys about what it's like to turn from hustler to entrepreneur. Because becoming a one-man show wholesaler, or you and your boys, you're a hustler before you're an actual business owner. And seeing what you're doing and giving people strategies with Scale with Pros is what excites me. And so tell me more about Scale with Pros. It's a community-based thing. So am I going to learn not just from you, but some of the other guys that are also entrepreneurs in the community?
Yeah. So essentially, I built out the community on School, and I have basically, the reason I called it Scale with Pros is I am an expert in multiple areas of business. But what I've done is I have my leadership team that I've built. So like I have my CFO, I have my head of operations, I have my senior web developer, I have my HR manager, I have our sales, our experts, I have our marketing guy, right? So it's like I have all of these experts on my team that, yes, I know enough to be dangerous in some of these areas, but I'm not an expert in every one of those areas. And so I built out, all of these trainings on basically all the best practices that we've used and installed into all of our companies. And that's the training. And then I have the training built from those experts. So like my CFO built out our finance modules so that people could learn directly from him. And we have, live workshops and Q&As that are, available. So that's why it's Scale with Pros, is they have access to not just me, but my leadership team. So if someone's struggling in ops or finance or sales or marketing, they have an actual expert that day to day is doing that specific niche of business every single day at a high level in companies that are doing millions of dollars a year. So it's like they get access to a team of people doing that. And that was essentially the goal, is to give people that, because it's just what I wish I had. I wish I had, somewhere I could go years ago to just message people at a high level that, you can't. Like I didn't know where else I could find that. So that's why I created it.
I didn't know that detail. And I can tell you the light bulbs that went off in my head as you were speaking, I'm like, oh, brilliant. Because to my knowledge, nothing like that exists for these guys or gals. And it's so, I was thinking, man, wow, I could have, for my business, similar thing. Like we have our marketing guy. If I had a community, and I'm not, but that had my CFO in it, and it had my data director in it, and it had my sales director in it, and it had my marketing director in it, and then you could ping them and they were recording, and our client success manager director in there. And it's like, wow, instead of just trying to be the one source, what you're giving the community is access to your foundation.
Yes.
And it's not just got to be funneled through you. You're saying, hey, listen, you have questions about a pro forma? I'm not really the guy. Like I read pro formas. I don't put them together.
Yeah.
Ping him.
That's exactly it. It's like there's certain things that Ben, my CFO, does. I'm like,
wow.
He's a, he has his doctorate of finance and accounting. He has his CPA. Like he is a smart guy. And I'm like, so everyone could ask him the questions that they have, and he could help them. It's like, and again, it's like I know. Like I could teach, and I do in there. It's like, here's as a CEO, here's what I look at on the financials as a company on a monthly basis. So it's like I teach them how to be a good entrepreneur and how to like read the finances, and he's more teaching them like all of the foundations of like how to just be knowledgeable in the entire field of finance as just a business owner. So he goes into a lot more depth on a lot of things. So but yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, and the thing is, it's because you'd think it's like, oh, does that take a lot of time? It's like all of our team, they get assigned a certain amount of Q&As. They go live and do Zooms on, a monthly basis. And, we have a private Slack channel for certain members that just, they could message them and just ask questions. And like, it's not that much time, honestly.
No, it's not. And it's also too, when you're in the heat of battle, you can make the wrong decision. And so to be able to be a resource where somebody can reach out like, dude, I got this thing going on with this HR matter. Or I got this thing going on with this marketing campaign, and I'm about to do, what do you guys think? And just be able to get that to what a value that provides to, again, young entrepreneurs. And I don't know if your avatar is younger guys necessarily, but my perception of it is, and just, man, if I would have had that as I was a knucklehead, to be able to leverage somebody I looked up to, the resources that they had, and be part of a community of other hungry, like-minded people who are picking up golden nuggets and sharing them with the team. That's a true community, man. So I'm proud of you with that. I've got a couple more questions, but I want to hit this real quick on Scale with Pros. How do we find out more about Scale with Pros? How does somebody reach out to you with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the two places people could go, I mean, to learn and kind of get like some snippets into it, people can go to my Instagram, Cody Barton Official, and just see, posts and things that I'll put up about it. My YouTube channel, just Cody Barton, not the professional football player, because there's a Cody Barton, that professional football player on YouTube.
Does he look like you?
It is kind of weird. He's like a super buff version of me. He is blonde with blue eyes, so it's kind of weird, but he's just like, I mean, twice my size, like 2.5 times my size.
I wonder if he's ever gotten any real estate questions. He's like, what are you talking about?
Honestly, he might, because I get tagged sometimes like in their team stuff on Instagram, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So it's funny, but those two places, and otherwise just directly scalewithprosmasteryprogram.com. But those are the places to go to learn. But yeah.
Dude, I love it, man. There's a gift and a curse when working with the younger entrepreneurs. And sometimes I feel like even with younger phone agents, I can believe in them more than they believe in themselves. Yeah. And so they hit the wall a couple of times, and it becomes frustrating because it's like, dude, I see you just got to stick to it, etc. Do you also kind of sometimes struggle with that with some of these younger guys, or what struggles do you have with some of these younger entrepreneurs?
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I think entrepreneurs like yourself and myself, we see the best in people. It's like we always want to see the good in them and like the potential and what's possible and like what they could do if they really apply themselves. And I mean, I would say it's definitely a problem that people have, is like that confidence and the belief in themselves. But at the same time, it's like what I think on it is like, all I can do is just be that light, that guiding light. And, they could choose to come to the light, or they could choose to continue on their path. It's like, I almost look at, you think of like a function of a lighthouse, like help ships not crash into the rocks and, sink a ship. It's like, that's just what I view myself as, is like, hey, I'm going to be over here on my foundation, and I'm going to shine my light. And, and the people that want to opt into that help and that support, they're going to choose to opt in. And, I try to think it's like, my job isn't to, force someone. It's, that whole saying of like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And, do you ever listen to any Jim Rohn?
All the time.
Yeah. So there's
I don't know what day I don't.
Oh, I love Jim. Yeah. He phenomenal stuff. I listen to YouTube stuff a lot, but there's a story he tells, and I always just, get a kick out of it. And I share it with my team sometimes when they're having trouble with maybe one of their direct reports. And, they're like, someone will be like, oh, they just have so much potential. Like, they can do this. Like, I know they can get there. And, Jim tells a story, and he's like, I'd always, get people in my business, and I just tell myself, I'm going to make them successful if it kills me. And he's like, and I almost died. He's like, I almost died.
Yes.
Because it's like, you can't force. And so that's where I'm like, I just see is like, my job is to be the light, and then the right ones are going to opt in, and the wrong ones are not going to opt in.
Cody, I see a guy like you, and I don't know too much other than this podcast who we spoke a previous time. But I know that there's certain disciplines that we both share, because I can feel the essence. And I feel like you're one of these types of guys that does what I give these guys encouragement to do, which is really work on filling their life, their day-to-day with positive things. Mm-hmm. And so whether that's finding that morning routine, or on your drive where you're listening to YouTube Motivation University, you listen to Jim Rohn, or you're listening to something like that, because what I see in people like us is like, we fill so much good stuff in, like we're filled to the top as much as we can possibly be, that when something bad comes, it just kind of bounces right off the top. Like, because we're already filled. We're taking a proactive approach to our days, to our weeks. And you talked about your success statements for yourself. You didn't just write that success statement on January 1st and then not look at it again till the next January. That's something that's part of your pattern of who you are as an entrepreneur, to put the good stuff in front of you, to put your goals in front of you, and to make sure that you're battling against all the negativity out there. And I can just feel it through the screen, man. I know it's part of your DNA.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And to your point, like I don't have like this like crazy morning routine per se, where it's like this 5-hour thing. I go back and forth, because I'm like, there's certain habits and patterns that are super important and that I found that are super helpful. But I also, there's some influencers online that they got this 4-hour morning thing. And it's like, yo, when are you just going to start working? Like, that's not good for the guy that's broke. Like, he needs to get up and go to work, you know?
Yes.
But it's, the importance of having that. And, I definitely do have that in my morning routine, which is like that protected time where I can do some journaling. I can read, I can listen to, a positive podcast. I can, have that me time to fill up. It's like you got to fill yourself up before you can, fill the cup of others. And so that is a super, super important thing that I've found that's been helpful for me. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the Zig Ziglar performance planner, that brown leatherback notebook of his.
Yes.
So
I never bought it, but I know what it is. Yes.
Yeah. So I had used that up until last year. I have 9 years of that book. That every year for 9 years I was using that. I finally just stopped using it last year, only because my team was going to strangle me if I didn't start just doing everything on my Google Calendar, because I was literally like, that was just my routine that I did for literally 9 years. And so I finally retired it, but I still, do journal now. But, it's those positive habits that just compound on themselves over and over again. And, like the Zig Ziglar, he's like, don't call it your alarm clock, it's your opportunity clock. And like, that's what it is in my phone and my alarm. And like, that's what I think of. I'm like, I'm setting my opportunity clock. And that's been hardwired since I was like 18. So it's like all of these little things just compound over time.
It's funny, the power of words, and then I'll wrap it up with you. But he says, don't call it a stoplight, call it a go light. And so today I was doing training with the guys, and I gave them a list of what I felt to be like 50 of the most powerful, influential words that they could use in the sales process. And I was trying to help them really understand. And these guys are fronters, they're not closers, but the difference between contract and them saying document, or the difference between, I need your signature, or exactly, I need your endorsement. And it's not a decision, it's a choice.
Yeah.
But these same words that we use in the psychology of our conversation with sellers, we also need to be conscious of the words and the verbiage that we're using with ourselves as well too. And so I personally have enjoyed being around guys, and even let's talk about it, Manifest You. Let's end on that.
Yeah.
How did that name come out?
Honestly, so it was really like me and a couple of our leadership team members. Like, we were kicking around trying to figure out the name for a while, honestly. And we just are big believers. So I guess let me say this first. Like, I'm not a woo-woo guy in the sense of like, you're just going to manifest everything into your life. It's like, I'm much of a set a goal and an intention in front of you, and then take massive action on that every single day, and you will manifest it into your life. And so,
Amen.
So that's my belief around that. And so, that was really like, when we think about what we do at Manifest You, it's our holding company, it's our leadership team that serves all of our companies. And from like media and education, we're helping people manifest, into a better, brighter future and create a better life for themselves through financial education or real estate education and things like that. And then we're also, in the businesses that we buy, we're working with those business owners to help them expedite and manifest their goals and dreams through their business by helping them and working alongside them. So that's, really where that name ended up coming from, is like, that's what we want to help people do, is, pull, kind of compress the time frame and help them, move and manifest towards their goals faster, including our own.
My first time I saw that word, first off, I'm a lot woo, and I'm a lot disciplined. So I'm on
I would
zigzag.
like that. I like that. I'm kind of on both. It's like, I'm very much, you have to set the intention. You need to think about it daily. You need to keep it front of mind. You need to have a positive energy around it. Like all of those things, the woo woo. But I am very much tactical and very much like, okay, because there's a lot of young people that I do talk to, and they're just like, I'm working on manifesting. I'm like, can I curse on here? Like,
yeah, of course.
I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, what have you done today? What have you done this week? Because there are people that I talk to, and it's like, you see them at events, and they're like, I'm just working on like trying to manifest this, stuff. And I'm like, what is on your calendar? Show me your calendar, and I'll show you what your life's going to look like. Because that's part of it. You got the manifest part down, but like, now what are you doing?
When I first saw your name, Manifest You, I said, what have I heard that before? I said, no, wait a minute, I have it. But when I 21 years ago was the last time I got a paycheck. Mm-hmm. Every dollar I've made, quantifiably large amounts of money that I made in the past 22 years have all been owner distributions, or more importantly, for the first like 14 years, overrides of a track performance or commissions only.
Yeah.
So for 20 some years, I haven't had a safety net. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life was commission only sales. And I remember I came up with something. I said, okay, I'm working for these guys and it sucks and I got to be here at a certain time, but I'm CEOU. Like I'm the chief. I'm the chief executive officer of myself, CEOU. So I used to write that all the time. I was like, yeah, I work for somebody else, but I literally give myself a raise every day or I give myself a demotion every day. Like I am the CEO of myself. So I used to write on my wall in my like early 20s, like CEOU. Yeah. When I saw Manifest You, I was like, oh, that's where it's from. I remember in my head, it's something similar. So
that's great. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, bro. Hey, dude, as always, it's great getting to know you a little bit better. I love what you guys are doing. Like I said, I think that for anybody out there and you're at that juncture where like you're going to take business serious, like it doesn't matter where you're at in scaling your business, but you want to take it a little bit more serious. Following the right people is tough, especially in the REI industry. And I think if you can look with authentic eyes, you'll see the authentic people. I know Pace and yourself are people that I like genuinely put on shoulders above the rest of a lot of the other guys in the industry out there. I think you're good guys. I think you're doing a good movement. I know you guys are pouring into people and you're teaching quantifiable tactics and not just rah. There's enough of the rah out there, but actual strategies and tactics to not be a hustler for the rest of your life, but to be an entrepreneur and business owner and leave a legacy. So again, I thank you so much for your time for coming on here, Cody. This has been a dope, quick conversation, man. How does everybody follow you again one more time?
Most active place is going to be Instagram, just Cody Barton Official. And if you follow the page that looks like a big buff football player, that's the wrong one.
Dude, I love it. All right, man, dude, I appreciate your time again. Thanks. We'll catch up here soon.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, talk to you, brother.